Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
These ascended masters have lived many lifetimes on the earth plane and have learned much, and they are in a position now to help us learn and grow. And they are willing to help be our teachers and our healers. They have access to information from the day of creation to the present time, and also to that which you have chosen to accomplish in this lifetime. And they are very eager and willing to help and bring forth the information that will be beneficial to you.
All right, so I'll ask the questions and Ginny will channel the answers. You ready, Jen?
I'm ready.
Okay, so what I thought we could talk about today, or at least start with, is I was talking last night with my niece. She's very into ancient Egypt. And I remembered that my son was also very much into like the Greek gods. He was reading a fantasy book series, the Rick Riordan book series. And it got me thinking about how, there's all these pantheons, the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the Egyptian gods, and on and on and on, Celtic and Norse mythology, and on and on and on. So I thought we could ask the multitude what they could share with us about the various world pantheons. Do these gods and goddesses truly exist? Did they exist in a more physical or visible way on this earth at one point? Or are they more just archetypes? What can they illuminate for us about gods, goddesses, and the world pantheons?
It is important to understand, my dear, that there are many questions involved in your question, and we will take them one at a time. In our estimation, my dear, there are many gods and goddesses, and they are known by many different names. Some call them love, some call them gods, some call them interpreters of being. We would like you to understand that it does not matter what they are called. They are all in the process of upgrading themselves and expanding themselves, as you are all in the process of upgrading yourselves and expanding yourselves. There are many of that genre, many of those groups that are interested in becoming a higher and better self, and that is our expertise. We are willing and able to help each one on the earth plane and elsewhere become a higher and greater, better self. Learn more, know more about who one is and what one wants, and allow oneself the possibility of being. These gods and goddesses, however, are in a different position. They have been put on a pedestal. They have lived as you are living. They have loved as you are loving, and they are moving forward. There are many who have experienced many things. However, their stories have been highly exaggerated. And there is nothing more to know that they were regular human beings living regular human lives with extraordinary abilities, as you have extraordinary abilities. It is important to understand that each of you have allowed yourself the ability to be on the earth plane, and that is quite extraordinary in its own right. It is a great accomplishment. It takes a great deal of energy to allow oneself to come to the earth plane, a great deal of energy. And when it is that one allows oneself to be on the earth plane and be who one is, a great deal can be accomplished. We, however, are interested in letting you know that much of what is heard, known, and taught about gods and goddesses is incomplete. It is only that part of them that has been made up stories, put up on the pedestal. There are those who have had great accomplishments. However, 90% of them are just human beings being who they are. kindness, generous, those types of things play into the picture. We would, however, like you to understand that there are also those stories that are incomplete and untrue. There are those stories that have been added to, quote, make it interesting, unquote. It is important to understand that as one moves forward in who they are, they can bring all that they can bring, and they can bring that in which that of themselves in order to help another move themselves along as well. It is important to understand gods and goddesses are very much the same as you, each of you, and each of them have lived their lives in great love, great care, great hope, and great understanding. Do not be concerned. If it is that you have another question on gods and goddesses, we would be quite happy to answer it for you.
And now I've got millions of questions, but okay, so let's just take one for example. And I feel like one of the best knowns is Zeus, although I can't speak intelligently to Zeus. I just know he was probably like, he's probably on the highest pedestal, right? Is there something that can be shared about his story? Like, you know me, I love to know, and I don't know if the multitude will share this, but I love to know time and place relative to our current time and place, where he lived, existed, what he truly did, how he got his reputation, that kind of thing. If there's something they can share.
It is important to understand, my dear. There are many of those stories that are incomplete, and many of those stories that are untrue. You will be disheartened to understand that Zeus was only a being in a mythical mind. He was one that was not on the earth plane. He was one that was kind of made up in order to help a certain, it's like type of people or sect of people move themselves to a higher level. Therefore, Zeus, in honoring oneself, was allowed to move oneself forward in such a way as to help learn and teach others. We can tell you, Zeus is quite proud of being an unspoken love being, as he is able to move himself forward in our estimation. Zeus is a character, and Zeus is able to move himself forward as everyone else. However, he is one that has not ever been on the earth plane, and he is one who is moving himself forward in spirit only. Those stories, they are made up stories. However, Zeus in his own right is moving himself forward on the spiritual level. Therefore, we would highly recommend that you not try to separate Zeus from any other, as he is energy, as energy is energy is energy, and all is love.
Okay, so that brings up like, okay, he didn't exist here. So it makes it feel like he didn't exist because he was made up. They kind of said he was made up. But yet we're hearing he's moving himself forward.
Right.
So that to me like doesn't jive.
Yeah.
But then when I think about it, it's like, well, we created him through this collective consciousness. And so now there is this energy that exists that we call Zeus that has been created. I don't know. I guess I just want clarification on that. If he's
Really
made
sure
up.
who Zeus was. Is that sun? Is he the sun god?
I gotta even look him up. Isn't that terrible? Like I remember hearing about him, but he was like the top guy. Zeus is the sky and thunder god in ancient Greek religion, who rules as king of the gods on Mount Olympus. His name is cognate with the first symbol of, this is just Wikipedia. Okay, so he's, so like, look, what is he the god of? He's a sender of thunder and lightning and rain and winds. And his traditional weapon was the thunderbolt. So if he was not real, right? Like some of these gods were named gods because they once, like it sounds like there's the made up stuff, and then there's the people who lived here and their stories were real and tangible at a certain time and place. And then maybe their stories got exaggerated and they've lived on, through oral history. But what they're saying is Zeus was not real. It was made up. But they're also saying Zeus is moving forward in his growth. That
Yeah.
makes it sound like he's a soul or something.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking for clarification.
Well, for me, what that brings up for me, though, is that, the people of the time needed an explanation of the thunder and of the lightning. And they
Yeah.
needed some way to like understand it or honor it in some way. So they made up this person in charge, this energy in charge called Zeus. That's how I see that. So in their minds, he was real. In I don't know. It's like to me, it feels like it was a tribe. It may not have been a tribe, but it's some kind of tribe or group of people that needed somehow to be okay with the lightning and the thunder, and they needed someone to be responsible for it. So they created this higher being and named him Zeus.
Yeah, but do you think in their creating that in their minds, it's because what the multitude just said is Zeus is moving forward in his own growth. And to me, like that makes sense if they're talking to me as a person and a soul, but they also said that Zeus is made up. So how is he made up, but also moving forward?
Well, and I caught that too when they were talking.
Yeah. So can they clarify that?
It is important to understand, my dear, there are a great deal of prophecies that are just that, just prophecies. There are those who believe them, and in their minds, they are real. However, in truth, there is only love. If one believes that there is something such as, it's like a god or a goddess or Zeus, then in one's mind it is real. It cannot make a difference on the earth plane, as there are those things in spirit that do not make sense on the earth plane. Zeus is Zeus is Zeus. And if it is that one has decided on the earth plane to call something, all right, so now I'm getting it. It's like, okay, on the earth plane, they needed a story, and they needed a god, a higher architect, maybe, of being. However, there is, it's still not making sense. There is that in spirit, and it decided to comply with these needs of these people. So this energy in spirit is known as Zeus on the earth plane. However, there really is no Zeus. There is only this spirit, this energy in the energetic world that allows itself to grow. And that is the misconception. That energy that is allowing itself to grow is known as Zeus on the earth plane. However, there is really no Zeus on the earth plane. It is all an energetic spirit moving the energetic self along.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that. So it's like to put it in a very basic way, like thunder and lightning was happening. The humans needed a way to describe it. They personified it and called it Zeus. And so that which they call Zeus is moving itself forward. It's not actually Zeus, this personified God, but it's the energy that already existed that's moving itself forward.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so just keeping with the gods and goddess theme, and even what as it pertains to like angels and elements, if you will, like when humans call upon I call upon Zeus, I call upon Hecate, I call upon, Artemisia or Artemis, whatever. I call upon the element of fire. I call upon Archangel Michael, right? We do this as humans often.
Right.
Can they say something about that? Because I feel like there's a truth under that. Well, I have my own belief. Maybe I'm just looking for validation of my own belief. I tend to believe that all of those things, gods, goddesses, angels, elements, are energies that exist within this universe, this realm of reality, that when we call upon it, we basically are activating that aspect of self. So I guess, could they clarify or confirm, or what is it they can say about the idea of humans calling upon that which they believe is outside of themselves, known as gods, goddesses, angels, elements?
It is important to understand, my dear, there are all of those things differentiated on the earth plane. However, in the spiritual plane, there is only energy. And when energy is called forward, that part of energy that is required allows itself to be known, allows itself to participate in what is required of them on the earth plane. It is important to understand there is no separation in the spiritual plane. There is only separation on the earth plane. Therefore, we would highly recommend that you not worry about which each one is and what each one does. It is only a way of understanding on the earth plane that there is an energy that is higher and greater than oneself, that one can contact, ask for help, allow to be in their presence, in their presence, but I can't think of the word, in that part of themselves that knows. It is important to understand that when one decides to come to the earth plane, one has already been in the presence of all these energies, and all of these energies are very much supportive of the one coming to the earth plane. It does not matter what you call them or who they are. What matters is that when one comes to the earth plane, one has made arrangements with these energies to help them go and help them grow. And one knows in one's heart what is right for one. It does not matter how one ascribes to the energy in the English language or any other language. What matters is what one feels in one's heart towards those beings or that energy that one has created on the spiritual plane. We can tell you there's much to be learned on the earth plane, but 99% of the participants on the earth plane are not ready to hear that there is no differentiation on the spiritual plane. Therefore, it is important to understand, important to address those parts that you bring forth, the elements, the guides, the angels, each one having a different expertise, and each one offering one's growth and understanding to another. However, each one is not separate. Each one is part of the whole. Each one is a part of the all that is, and each one is part of source energy. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Did that energy coming in feel different for you as you channeled that message?
Not really.
No. I always wonder, like, I can, obviously sometimes when you channel, I wonder if it's like a different vibration that.
Oh, that's a good point. Because I used to cough all the time, but that, whatever that was, has been healed pretty much. And now I'm just feeling it in my throat. So you may be right.
Yeah. Because as you were channeling it, it felt very vast to me. Like, I want to like ask a follow-up question, but it just felt like, whoa, there's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And 99% of us are not ready for
Right.
it yet. But I'm like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
just,
don't know if I'm in the 1%. I'm probably not, but like, uh,
you're in the 1.5%,
um,
they're saying.
like I'm
Yeah.
curious.
We are limitless beings, and there's limitless energy. And there's no way, I believe that there's no way to understand a lot of what goes on in the spirit world because we're just not capable in the physical world. And the multitude has taught that.
Yeah.
Very,
It's just so funny. Like the things that come up as you were channeling was like, there's so many religions that say one God, which in some way is true because they're saying there is no separation, right? But then there's what goes with that is this belief of like worshiping false gods, right? Which is like you can't call on, I don't know, Athena. You can't call on Zeus. That's a false god. Like we have one God. And like the energy behind it is different from it's all one. It's more, it feels so much more limiting. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So what they said was like, what's important is the belief. I don't know the exact word they said, but like how you feel about that. Right. So it's like, and I don't like to use the word worship because that to me is, it puts you outside of it, but we're really part of it, you know? So, okay,
So
let's
I
follow.
think so. I think the one God is source energy because
Yeah,
that's the creator of all. And so, yeah, I can understand that. But I don't think religion understands that.
I don't think religion understands it either because there's a lot of limits on
Yeah.
how to access the one God.
Well,
You can't, there's a lot of rules.
right. Yeah.
And
And
to me, rules are limiting.
a lot of times it's like we know that we can access um, the God energy, the source energy, and all the help that we need. We can access it ourselves. But there are those, like a lot of the, well, at least the religion I was raised in, is that you have to go through the priest or the minister or whomever to access God. You can't do it on your own. Two very different things.
Or you have to go through Jesus.
Right, right.
Okay, so there's a good follow-up. What
Okay.
does Jesus have to say about that?
It is
About all of us having to go through him?
oh, that's funny. It is important to understand, my dear, that I'm quite happy to be of such a popularity. However, it is important to understand that sometimes people have no recourse and they can only call on the one that they know to call on. They cannot understand that it is themselves that they are interested in being in connection with. Therefore, they think it is me, it is I that they need to be in connection with. It is not truth. Each one has their own connection to connect with themselves in spirit, which allows them to connect with the all that is and source energy. When it is that each one thinks that there is someone or something that they need to go through in order to connect with themselves, this is the self-connection, right? To connect with themselves, they are sorely misinterpreting the information required in order to move themselves along. When it is that one decides that one needs to access themselves through me, I can help them with that process. However, the process is their own and has very little to do with me. Do not be concerned, my dear. All is love.
So does that have any impact on him as a soul to be called upon at such great volume and desperation?
It is my greatest honor to help and to serve. And it does not matter, as when I am in energy, I am energy everywhere, and all is love.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so going back, thanks, Jesus. Going, I knew this was all gonna come, and you should see my notes right now it's all coming together. Okay, so then, for example, going back to, there's so much that we have yet to learn that we can utilize to help us. Something new, like when they were saying, like, there's so much, but 99% of you are not ready for it. Is there something that they can share with us, for example, on how to work with these energies that is useful for everyday life?
We would like you to understand that you are the one in charge of your everyday life. And the highest and greatest, best gift that we could ever give you is the information for you to understand that you are the one in charge. You are the one doing the doing. You are the one doing the deciding. You are the one moving yourself along. We are here to help. However, we can only help in that which you ask. We can only help in that which you require for your highest and greatest growth. On the earth plane, one has access to many things and many parts of self. However, one does not have access to all of oneself. And it is important for one to understand that when one is in connection with all of oneself, there is great peace, there is great love, there is great understanding of being, there is great knowing, and one is able to move oneself forward in such a way as to allow oneself this peace, this love, this care, this understanding. In our estimation, it is right for you to understand that you are doing the best possible thing that you can do on the earth plane. And that is the best possible thing that you can do to raise your energy, to allow your vibration to expand, to allow yourself to move yourself forward. It is the energy of love, my dear, love of self first, and love of others second. It is important to understand that love of self requires one to know who one is, one to know what one wants, and one to understand that there are as many ways of attaining those things while staying in connection with who one is. There are those parts of self, however, that believe that it is incorrect for one to care for oneself, to understand that one is required to move forward in a higher and greater way. It is important to understand that each one is in connection with self and therefore allows some things. And when one is in a higher and greater connection, one is able to, it's like, do the exchange, allow the energy that is no longer required on the earth plane to release itself and allow the new energy from oneself and spirit to move oneself closer to being the ideal person that one wishes to be. We can tell you there are those who, it's like, push it all aside. Those who say, oh, that's hogwash. That's not important to being who one is. And we can tell you it is quite important for each one to feel one's feelings, to understand that that is an ability of love of self. When one feels one's feelings and allows oneself to understand, this is right for me, this is not right for me, this is correct for me. It is important to understand that although emotion plays a part, emotion is not the feeling we are speaking of. It is not the crying. It is not the expression of the feeling. It is the feeling. And when one feels the feeling, and one feels, say, the anger or the fear, and feels it in one's body or in one's knowing, one is able to help heal that feeling. We can tell you that as it is that you move forward in love of self, then you are able to not only help yourself grow, you are able to help others grow, sometimes by words, sometimes by action, sometimes by just plain love. Do not be concerned, as all is love. And when one loves from the heart self, there is nothing more for one to do, be, or give, just love.
That's interesting. It's like you don't have to like necessarily express the feeling. You just have to allow it to move through you.
Now,
That's
on the earth plane, it's probably good to express the feeling.
yeah.
You don't
Yeah, but
express it, then you could like hide it, and you have to come learn it again. I don't know.
well, it's funny though. I've seen you like you handle it so well, Ginny. I've seen a feeling come in and you say, yeah, because I can feel it. But you're outwardly, you look so neutral, but you're like, yeah, I can feel the anger.
Yeah.
But you're neutral. You're not like outwardly raging, you know?
Right.
That's really good to know. Okay. So on that note then, like oftentimes I think of, and I've learned this through watching other people have healing experiences, like miraculous, spontaneous, maybe not spontaneous. It's really, it is intentional. Like I think about Jesus and when he was working with people and healing people. And the mind that I have, I like to understand it, the mechanics of it, right? And so I often think about people showing up to him looking for healing, right? And the mechanics of the energy of what's happening in that moment of like, well, they've entrusted him that and believe that indeed he has this power to heal miraculously. And so they've in that moment surrendered and allowed and stepped into the healing, and then it happens for them. And so it's actually them healing themselves, and it's not Jesus. Like maybe Jesus is the channel by which some sort of energy comes in, but it's also their stepping into the allowing that allows the miracle to happen.
Right.
Would Jesus agree with that interpretation of how it happened, or could he clarify?
We would like you to understand that Jesus has already left. It's like he's left the building.
Jesus has left the building.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on back. Okay, the multitude can answer.
It is important to understand you are correct in your knowing. There is much that is done by one's ability to allow oneself the option of allowing oneself. When one can open one's heart to oneself, one allows the energy to flow through from them for them. When one asks another to allow their energy of help and love, one allows not only oneself's energy, but another's energy as well. As when each one allows the energy to flow, there is a greater understanding, a greater sense of love and care. Therefore, the person who is like wanting the healing within oneself is able to accept on a higher and greater level, not necessarily receive more or less, but accept, as then it is in the act of acceptance. As it is in the act of acceptance, it is where the miracle occurs. Do not be concerned.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was hard to say, but yeah.
Yeah.
In the act
Thanks.
of acceptance.
Yeah, and I think about even like I was just talking to my husband about this. I don't think he was really listening because this is not his jam, but he was letting me talk out loud. You know, and it's because I had a client yesterday and she was here for 3 hours and he's like, I just can't believe someone would sit there for 3 hours and be willing to talk. And I'm like, well, and then I started talking and trying to understand it. And it's like, I think what happens is, you know, as you spend enough time with someone and in their presence, if they are compassionate and non-judgmental, they become more and more comfortable. And in that feeling comfortable, they reveal more and more that they've held deep within themselves, like shameful secrets. And it's like, it reminds me of like the confessional, right? The Catholic confessional, confess your sins. But I feel like they got it all wrong because, you know, and then there's like a punishment of Hail Marys. That's how it feels like as a Catholic, like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're groveling, like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then you're like punished with prayer. But like the true idea of it is like, or my understanding from witnessing it is like, they finally feel comfortable enough to speak out loud that which they've held in shame inside of themselves for so long. And when they're met with that sharing with compassion and non-judgment, they can forgive themselves. And that the idea of like forgiveness is like really just forgiving yourself, and that's what allows it to like let go. And the accepting of the compassion from another person is like, oh, I am forgiven. So it's not like Jesus needs to forgive you, you need to confess your sins. It's like there's such like there's more of an alchemy around it than there is just like a protocol, you know. There's like an unfolding, and I think through that is when like the energy can release and the healing can happen. That's my understanding. I don't know about you, Jenny. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like it's like when they're ready to open their hearts, because the energy is there always. But when they're ready, when someone is ready to accept that energy and accept that love, it's there for them. And otherwise, they just kind of block it all out. You know, they
Yeah.
can't allow themselves the gift of self-love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so sad. Because it really speaks to how empowered we are to do this for ourselves.
Yeah. But the other part of that, though, I think, is that people don't know they can do it. People don't understand that they can do it or how to do it. And I think that's why we're here. That's why we are able to do what we can do to help them, as Jesus was able to do what he could do to help them. Now, we hear the stories of Jesus and the healing and the physical healing, but I would be willing to bet there was a lot more like energetic or emotional healing than those stories. Those have not been printed.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes the physical stuff was manifested because of the emotional stuff. And when you release the emotional, then the body's constantly seeking homeostasis. It's just how the body is built, right? And then once you release the energy that's been blocking the body from reaching homeostasis, then that block's no longer there. It can achieve what it's been seeking. Maybe not, I don't know, like the miraculous, he can walk again. That's so fascinating to me. But the overtime stuff makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't believe it. I believe miracles can happen. I'd love to see it, you know. I wonder why we don't see as many miracles today as, or maybe it's just they're so talked about and put on pedestals that it sounds like miracles happened so much more back in the day.
Right. I think part of that is because, as you were saying before, people would go to Jesus and they expected help from Jesus, but they don't expect the help from themselves. And as we've learned, it's all about inner work and inner healing and inner releasing to allow the healing energy. So there aren't a whole lot of stories for one about that kind of thing. There
Yeah.
are some, of course.
Well, on that note, I wonder if the multitude could share a very practical step by step for someone who wants to experience healing from themselves in this way, at least to get people started. If there's something they want to share that makes sense for us on the human realm of things.
We would like each of you, whoever is listening, whoever is speaking, to please put your feet flat on the floor. Allow yourself to be who you are, and allow yourself to understand that you are all you need. You are exactly what you need. You brought yourself to the earth plane. You brought with you that which is important for you to process on the earth plane, and that which is important to allow you to process on the earth plane. It is important to understand that as each one allows each one to move oneself forward, one allows these processes to work within oneself, allowing oneself to be who one is. We would highly recommend that each of you breathe. Just breathe. Take a breath here, take a breath there. When it is that you are upset, take a breath. When it is that you are angry, take a breath. When it is that you move yourself to another level, take a breath. As what it is that one is needing, consolation, healing, love, it is oneself that needs to give it first, and then allow another to be helpful and loving and caring. In our estimation, that is how one takes care of oneself. There is a great deal of inner work, and that is the beginning. That is how it starts. That is how one moves oneself forward. We would highly recommend that each one allow themselves 3 minutes per day, feet flat on the floor, allowing oneself to breathe, allowing oneself to move oneself forward, and allowing oneself to move from one state of self to the next. Do not be concerned. When one is ready, one knows what one needs. One allows that to come to one when one is ready. It is quite perfect indeed. Do not be concerned. There is no efforting involved. It is a great deal of ease. It is love. It is care. It is being. It is breathing. And all is love.
So to add to that, like, folks could, like, I just feel like I want to share this, and Ginny, you can add.
Before you do, I would just like to add that as I was like channeling that information, I was seeing all of these beings. You know, this one would come in and then he'd flash out, and another one would come in for a few seconds, and another one. So they're with us and they are helping us, you know.
Yeah, I definitely felt there was some like healing energy coming through just with that transmission.
Yeah. So you were going to say?
Yeah, just to like ask for, I mean, it's like a prayer, right? To ask for healing and allow, accept, receive as if it is done without doubt. And, you know, I guess there's like a tremendous amount of belief and trust that has to exist. Maybe it doesn't have to exist. I tend to think that when you doubt, it pinches the energy off. But when you have an intention of, you know, whatever it is, my jaw, your ear, whatever, right? Like, I ask for healing right now. And I ask to bring forth that energy that will bring about healing. And then imagine yourself receiving it and really truly step into the allowing and the accepting, just as we were talking about how the healing was performed with Jesus. And they told us this whole time, we can do this ourselves. So, you know, to add an intention to it, if you're specifically looking for healing on something specific, that doesn't hurt.
And
Mhm.
I think too, if you can't accept the word healing, substitute another word that feels right for you. And the same thing will be allowed because it's your energy, it's yourself, and it's your knowing. So if healing doesn't feel right to you, accept, replace it with a word that does feel right to you.
Love it.
Okay.
Well, we got through almost every single thing on my list, which I was like, how are we going to cover these? These are such different topics, but the multitude has a great way of flowing, letting it flow so that you can get all those topics as off as they are.
They do.
I've got two more, but I'm going to save those for later, I think, for next time.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to wrap up. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for all your efforts and your questions. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks for channeling, and
I
thanks to the
think it's fun.
multitude.
I love channeling, so it's very easy for me. So
Well, and I like knowing things, so we're a great match.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you so much, Ginny.
you're welcome.
Thanks, multitude.
Everyone for joining.
Thanks, Jesus.
Appreciate. I hope the information that has come through is beneficial to you and that you'll continue to move forward on your journey with ease. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Wait, what about thank you so much for listening? Thank you
Yes,
so much
thank you
for
so much
coming.
for listening. Thank you so much for allowing, and thank you so much for being you. And now they will add, as you are our most important commodity on the earth plane.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Ginny. Bye, everyone.